we'll go from there. And there's Carrie. Hey, Carrie, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello.
Hello.
Good
I was
your background so much.
evening.
Yeah, are those your drawings, Carrie?
Those are a variety of mine and my children we've done different YouTube shows over the years, and some of those are mine and some of those are ours.
Awesome. I was saying before when it was just a couple of us on that on my ride to work on Monday, last week, my mother called me and was just so moved by Yuritsa talking about students needing their clothes washed, and she wanted to wash clothes for people in Pittsfield. It was pretty interesting, and just to hear people throughout the week. And I was saying a lot of people watch the video versus just being on, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And you ready for the week?
YouTube, it leaves its mark and it's there for forever. You never know when somebody's going to bump into something that we're doing.
Yeah. Oh, my mom just logged on. We were just talking about you, Mom.
That's so funny.
I would horrify her if I brought her on the camera. So one of these times I will do that for sure. But I said that you were willing to do some wash for people who are watching from Pittsfield. So we'll bring it over to Gene Joseph's house. So Carrie, are you back now? I kind of asked everybody what they were doing, and
yeah. So last week was my first week back. We started on Tuesday. My students are in person for half the day. And our goal is for me to meet all their IEP minutes the first half of the day before they leave. So they eat lunch at home. So it's been a week. I mean, there's been a lot of tears, a lot of crying. I've got some distance from it, but it's been a new experience for me in terms of the sadness that I feel like I've finally like wrapped my head around it, talked to some friends, because I was feeling really, really down. Like I feel like the best way to put it is I feel like I've lost my best friend. Like they've died, literally, me as a teacher, because I love teaching that much. And it feels like when I drive to work or the students are done with the day, it feels like I have this really feeling of loss in me.
Carrie, do you have any hybrid students, or are they all in person?
So 9 of my students are in person, and then 3 of them Zoom in for classes. It's exhausting. And I teach 6 in a row. So that's also really exhausting. I did talk to my associate principal the other day, and I'm like, I can do this for maybe till November, but then I'm like, if this is going to be something that we're thinking is going to stay, I'm like, I can't teach 6 periods in a row. All every day.
Well, on and off, and I think looking at that and really maneuvering it, and that should definitely be something to chat about as we get into the year, and when we see once everybody is back in some capacity. I feel like southern schools are back, and more of the northeastern schools by the 15th of September. And I think really diving into that is something to really think about. And I think as we kick off and go for episode 2, it's awesome to have some people with us live. So if you're here with us, throw some questions or thoughts into the chat. I see a few of you here already. Hey everybody, you're tuning in. Thank you, of course, to Gaggle and Bunsey for helping us out. Tweet out some of the things. We're always going to continue to do giveaways. But as we dive into today, it really struck me, the first few people that came on were, Kanisha logged on, and then Emily, and then Ariel and Molly. And it really hit me that not only are they coming on here on a Sunday night, they're meeting students for the first time. And, Kanisha and Emily and Molly are first time in classrooms. And Ariel, you've been in classrooms, but now moving to 4th grade. I saw that photo you had. It was some corkboard or something. You had your mask and you said, "Welcome to 4th grade."
That's my letterboard. I love your letterboard.
So the 4 of you, what are you going to do? Tonight we're going to talk about student partnerships. What are the 4 of you going to do to meet students? Because I think the 4 of you are all hybrid in some capacity. And Kanisha, you were talking about you had a large group of students and sometimes only for an hour. So the 4 of you, what are you doing? Like, give us some ideas, some suggestions as brand new teachers that you are going to welcome students. Introduce yourselves. What are you going to do?
I'll start. Welcome everyone that's here. Thank you so much for coming back. And I know I'm in New York. We start the first day of classes with students on Tuesday. So I have a co-teacher. I'm in an integrated co-teaching setting. I'm the general education teacher. She's the special education teacher. So we divided up our students to make sure that we made those phone calls, most of them together. If we couldn't call home together, we made sure that we at least touch base. But we also sent out an interest form on Google Forms, asking a lot of different questions. Describe your child. What is your child? How does their child feel about coming back to school? That nitty gritty stuff that maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable saying over the phone if like the little student is listening in. And we got some really good responses. So I
Nice.
wrapped up my Google form on Friday and I went home yesterday on Friday and I was like, I don't feel right about starting the school year like this. I was reading this form and I'm like, I don't feel right. Most of these students are very nervous. So I sent up a follow-up email yesterday morning to any student family who expressed that they were a little bit nervous, apprehensive, anxious, putting out offers for Google Meets or phone calls. And surprisingly, most of them took me up on it. So I've been spending most of today doing Google Meets with students. And I have to tell you, it was amazing. It was like seeing these kids, they are
No
so
masks, right? Just
no
as
mask.
is.
They are so happy to see me without a mask. And I modeled what it would look like. I showed them what my loops would be like. This is me without a mask. This is what
Oh,
I'll sound
nice.
like. They
Great
were
idea.
so happy.
That's a
And
great idea.
it made me happy too, because like you said, Carrie, like it's not the same.
Right.
It feels sad. There's really no other way to describe it except it's just heartbreaking to watch these little kids come into school. I've never taught fourth grade before, so this is a new grade for me. And I know that they're anxious and nervous, but the Google Meets, I was really happy. So
And I'm sure it filled you up too. Like I remember, being fearful, or not fearful, but the unknown is always fearful, right?
yeah,
Then when we get the kids, they remind us why we really went into teaching, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
sure that those Google Meets were just as refreshing and made you remember why you wanted to be a teacher just as much as they remembered they're going to be safe and this is going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Errol, you've had students come into you before, so that is a great lead in. How about Emily and Molly? You essentially just left college, moving this weekend, and now you have to meet students for the first time. What are your plans? Like, tell us what you're doing as new teachers to make this work for you.
Yeah, so I am teaching ELA for third grade. So I'll actually have half of my students in person and half of my students remote. That's like what the position was assigned to me. And so I've been working all week in PD with my veteran teachers and experienced teachers and my team teacher who's teaching the math side. And we've been making plans. We have one more week of PD. So I'm in Massachusetts and we're not starting until the 15th. But we've been trying to come up with ideas of how to kind of make our students feel comfortable coming in. So we haven't really come up with all those plans, but Ariel, I love that idea of creating the Google form of asking how the students are feeling.
And I can definitely send those questions to you. I'll tweet some of them out under Mentor Round also. We really took the time to think, what questions can we ask that will make the parents feel like this is a safe and welcoming space?
Yeah. I would love to see that, because we sent out summer letters that went out on Monday, and we put our emails down and asked for parents to do a Zoom meeting with their remote kids before we had the full remote. So we're trying to do one-on-one meetings with anyone who wants to. So we still have 1 week and we haven't nailed down those yet, but our plan is to, on Thursday and Friday, meet on Zoom with all those kids, but they're also coming in to get their devices for at home for remote learning. So we're going to meet them in person and set up their emails with them. So I'm very thankful that we get that time to sit with like all of the remote students at least for an hour to kind of meet them in person. So that's pretty much the time we'll spend with them, setting everything up to make them feel comfortable. But yeah, I would love that Google Meet.
That's awesome. I also wanted to throw in, I'm going to throw in a link in the chat here. I saw Rachel Puth log on. She wrote a fabulous article about Welcome Back Ideas. So I wanted to pop that in the chat here. As an article and Get Smart, Getting Smart is some great ideas there. So, Kanisha and Molly, what are you planning on? And I know you're coming at it from two different capacities, but I'd love to hear what you're doing.
Yeah. So my school is actually completely virtual right now, and we are under the impression that this town is going to vote when they want the students to go back to school. So for the beginning of school, we're planning everything completely remotely. So there's not a date in mind that the kids are coming. So things in my district are still like a lot of kids are dropping out to go to private schools to be in person, or parents are choosing to homeschool their kids. So things are changing every 5 minutes. So we actually haven't even gotten class lists or anything yet. But one
Wow.
thing that I've been spending
Ours change every day. We get a new class list every day.
yeah.
Oh
One
boy.
thing I've been spending a lot of time doing is I made a Google site and a Bitmoji classroom in my Google Classroom, and I'm filling those with so much information and like a lot of about me and a lot of social emotional resources and a lot of books that we're going to read. And one thing I did on my Bitmoji classroom was I made our reading corner, and then I linked a YouTube video of myself reading a book, so that as soon as we get that class list, we can get the parents' emails, send the links out to the parents, and before the kids know anything about school, they can explore the website, see their teacher reading them a book for the first time. And then, like Emily said, for her remote students, we're going to have a day where the students pick up their Chromebooks, and we're making them take home bags with all the materials that they're going to need. So I'm
Nice.
planning on putting together like a little fun package for them. I've seen a lot of ideas, but if anyone has ideas that they've done before, or articles that you've seen of cool things to send home just for fun, less on the educational side, but to make them feel comfortable, that would be
No.
awesome.
Yeah, and I think that both of you are traditional classroom teachers, meaning like you're a teacher within a classroom setting where you would think of a typical elementary classroom. And Kanisha, you were sharing with me before you came on, yours isn't quite so typical. So
It's
how
not,
you explain, share with the other crew here what that situation's like and how you're handling that. It was quite interesting.
yeah, I'm handling it. I mean, I'm just feeling really like I'm feeling a little bit sad as well, like even though it hasn't started yet because of the situation. So I teach 10th grade English, or I will be teaching 10th grade English. 55 of my students are online and only 35 of them are in person. And we're expected to have like, even with, whether in person or online, all the students are required to do the same amount of work. But my online students, we're only supposed to meet with them once a week for an hour.
Wow.
So I have 55 students that I'll be meeting with for 1 hour once a week.
Wow.
And, I just feel like that's not enough. I feel like
No.
even with them, even with me, like making it very plain, on Canvas, what they need to do every single day, I just feel like that's not enough support. And I think my school will figure that out pretty early on, that that's not enough. I feel like, because I have 2 free periods every day, I don't understand why, one of those periods can't be me teaching them online every day just to have, a consistency with them. I'm going to have to basically try to cram in that 1 hour, everything from the whole week for all of those students, with them being at different levels. This person may want to advance, or this person may, still be not understanding what happened, the work we did yesterday. Like, I just feel like it's a lot. There's going to be a lot of emails. There's going to be a lot of confusion. I'm positive I'm going to do the best I can for my students, no matter what. And I was telling Matthew, like, before we got on, that I don't think that students should have to suffer just because of the pandemic, or because of what we as teachers are required or expected to do, when it's not their fault that they have to learn this way.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I would rather just bear all the brunt of that and not allow it to trickle down to them as best, as I can. So yeah, my office hours are going to be from 1:30 to 3:30. Those are my 2 free periods. Whereas like other people, like, you're not getting my planning period. Like, no, I don't care. I just want to be there for them. So
That's
all.
great. One suggestion that I heard, and again, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot, and I wish I could remember the person who said this, because it was a great idea. And if it was one of you, then say it was me. I don't remember, but they said to wear a button of your face, because you're going to be behind a mask. So when the kids are looking at you, to have your almost like a school picture, but somewhere where that the kids can see you behind the mask. And I know you take mask breaks, especially for our younger students. I know Ariel and Emily and Molly are teaching, 1st through 4th grade. So Yuritsa, you put a link in there. Tell us. I don't want to open it because I'm too engrossed in what we're doing here. What's going to be on there?
So I created, during the pandemic, I created a free Google Classroom for all educators. It has different lesson plans. It has resources. It has Flipgrid activities. It has Wakelets, Nearpod activities, and their activities for introducing yourself to students, but also SEL activities. If you teach phys ed, I place some phys ed activities in there, math.
Okay.
And the idea is just, when I created it, it was more like culturally responsive teaching strategies, but also I infused SEL in every part of it. And so even just listening to this conversation of how do you introduce yourself to students, what I thought about was my students who are overage and undercredited. You know, like I don't have to really explain to my kids what I look like behind a mask. And I don't really have to like ask the kids, can you really hear me or not? Because they're older, it's more like, I guess they have like the opportunity to say, well, Ms. V, can you speak louder? Or they don't really care about how I look. And so I have to take it a step further and create something like an album cover project that basically just says, okay, design an album cover. The images that you use should reflect how you're feeling. And then you're going to choose 10 songs that explain to me how you're feeling today or how you've been feeling through this pandemic. Because what I've learned a lot with students is that even if you ask them, how are you doing today? Just because they don't want you to ask another question or a follow-up question, they'll say, I'm doing well. But then when I did the album cover project, I realized when I listened to some of those songs, they were heartbreaking. And so that allowed me to reflect, but also when I went into class the next day or when I had live instruction, I would play some of those songs. And now it's more like, all right, she gets me. She made that connection. She acknowledges how I feel. And so it allowed me to now open up communication with students in a way where I probably wouldn't have face-to-face. But now that I will be face-to-face, my students are returning on the 21st of September. The album cover project is actually my first project that I'll be doing. So nothing academic. Everything is, if you could design an album cover, choose it, pick 10 songs. If they don't exist, create your own music. And so that allows me too, for those students who probably can't think of songs on the spot, just to look at what titles they'll give to their feelings. And then I'll move on to like a comic book activity that I created, if you've seen me posted today, that also has to do with SEL. So just listening to you guys, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But
nice.
Then, like, I don't have the babies. Like I had the kids who are just like, Miss, stop asking me how I'm doing. Like,
Yuritsa, I love that idea, and this could be easily transferable to elementary too. I mean, elementary students do listen to music, so we can ask them to, maybe it could be a remote assignment because they may need help at home, but look at what they listen to and pick already made songs instead of creating their own, or create their own. But I love that idea. And then do you display them after, or is it private just for you?
So I do display it. What I had kids do is I had kids upload it to Flipgrid, and I created a
that's great.
Oh, love Flipgrid.
And then when I created a mixtape, I told the kids that the activity was to do like a rap session, but it was literally wrapping up the project. And so when we went on live instruction, every kid had to choose one song out of the 10 and explain why they chose that song. What was great about it was after I shared it with parents. So then the parents had access to the mixtapes and were able to see exactly what their students were creating. This same exact project, one of my friends, Nairi, she actually used it as a PD in Cali. So you could even use it with adults, you know?
Wow.
You want to know how people are doing before you even move on to anything instructionally.
And you're so right. Like sometimes words are really hard. Like sometimes I don't know.
Especially in the moment, like you don't. So I remember now I remember, before I got on, I was talking about the button because I saw Rachel Puth, who writes for Times 10, and then I saw Christine Rivasi, who also wrote for Times 10, and she was telling me about that. She's here, so I hope you're listening, so I'm going to call you on, because she wrote the book Anxious, and why students need that, and why students need that ability to see teachers. So I'm going to move her on over. Hopefully she's listening and can talk us through.
Along with those lines, we're planning on taking pictures of all of our students and putting them like on the front of their desks too. So it's not just the teachers' faces with pictures, it's like they could see their classmates without masks too.
Awesome.
I love that.
There she is. Christine, how are you tonight? Thanks for joining.
I wasn't really expecting to be a participant.
Well, this is what happens. So you had a great idea and I remembered it. So
watching the NBA playoffs and listening to you guys.
Well, so as someone who's a mental health advocate, why was that important for students to see you as the teacher?
Well, it's important for a couple reasons. I mean, obviously there's this curiosity aspect to it. There's nervousness when it comes to the first day of school for everybody. But for students with anxiety, because everything about their anxiety is centered on and fixed on control, they're not going to feel comfortable relinquishing control to their teacher if they can't trust their teacher. And if they can't relinquish that control, their anxiety is never going to settle during the course of that class. And one of the ways in which these students can relinquish control and build trust is to know what this person looks like. Like they're this masked man, right? That can be, there's like, you know, when you think about like, you know, horror movies or whatever, like there's an aspect that's like frightening and scary. It's like, you're already enough of a stranger and now we can't see your face. It's more of a stranger. I mean, I joke that, I don't know where it was that I was going, but I was walking into a place with my mask on, sunglasses, and a baseball cap. I'm like, in no other part of my history would I ever be allowed to enter a facility dressed like this, right? But because it's COVID, it's normal now. And so for kids, they don't know you. That's strange to them. Now you're masked. They can't trust you. A majority of communication is nonverbal. It's being able to read facial expressions. You can't do that. So just this simple notion of, you know, the faculty coming together to put together buttons that show your face, and that you wear on your shirt all the time. I mean, I know a lot of schools require IDs, but I mean, it's a little bit different if you can create a button that's larger, that shows your face maybe smiling. It can really curb the anxiety that students are feeling. It can let them relinquish control to their teacher, which is going to settle their anxiety and help them be more successful.
Awesome. Well, thanks for popping on. Sorry to just call you out, but you just never,
for the occasion.
You never know, but thanks for tuning in and enjoy the playoffs. Hope you don't log off. We got about another 20 minutes or so, but.
Oh, I'm not going to log off.
All right, good. Cause I'll see if you do. So I might.
Oh, so now I'm on the hook.
All right. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Yep.
So Carrie, I want to talk about, so Christine talked about, being creative. So I see the things behind you and I see everything that you're doing. How can some of our new folks be creative in this time?
Sure. I'm going to say her name wrong. Yaritza, did I say that right? Awesome. Good. So she was reminding me of the project that I do with my students, something called Learning Mascots. And it started with a teacher friend of mine when we really wanted to get adults to draw, because drawing can be a very intimidating thing to do. So we came up with this idea of a single drawing that students can draw over and over and over again that represents their inner self, their inner them, that reminds them of what they can do and what they're capable of. And so something that I love to do with my students is have them create their learning mascot. So we start by thinking about 5 things that tell us about ourselves. And then I tell the students to doodle what they imagine each of those words look like. And then I take them on a little bit of a story with me, and I share with them my learning mascot and show them Stanley the hamster, who is my learning mascot, and tell them all about how I created him, where he's from, all the journey to how I got to him. And then I tell them to think about the 5 things that they talked about themselves and the doodles they created, and what would those words and those images connect together to create their learning mascot. And so then we take this single image that represents their inner self and we create a story for it. What's its name? How tall is it? How big is it? Where is it from? What's its origin story? What are its strengths? What are some things that it can do? And my favorite part is like, what legacy is this learning mascot going to leave in our classroom? And it's just a wonderful activity. First of all, I get to show them my learning mascot. And so I'm already being vulnerable, right? So I'm sharing this story about me and my learning mascot, Stanley, and all these crazy things we've done together. And then I ask them to go ahead and do theirs. And it's just really wonderful to see how when we take just a single drawing and then this story that they create for their learning mascot, how much of themselves, similar to the songs, all of a sudden it seems really simple and basic, but all of a sudden in this really unique way, we get to see this really wonderful inner part of students come out. And so then students have this learning mascot that they can draw, and we try to make it really simple so they can draw it in under 30 seconds or less, that the learning mascot could show up on a worksheet and remind them that they can do this, that they can, you know, do the worksheet, or that they can focus on the worksheet. Or maybe it shows up on our math notes and has a thought bubble and reminds them that they need to use their calculator on something. Or with our littles, I could even imagine on Zoom, you could have them literally make like a flat mascot, right? Okay, let's do a mascot check-in. Everybody tell me how are our mascots feeling? So now all of a sudden, our mascot gets to be brave, right? About how we're feeling. But it's really them. Or if we're stuck on Zoom and a kid can't think of an answer, well, what would Susie, your dog mascot, say about that reading? And really having that, you know, alter ego, that alter self that is applicable in so many ways. I mean, my social worker will come into my classroom, and we'll work on a lot of SEL, like what negative thoughts is your brain giving you, and what words can your learning mascot give you to go, you know, to go against those negative words. But it's just a really fun activity. You could, I mean, sky's the limit on that, right? I mean, we could do flip grids with it. You could have, I also love it because it really is paper and pencil. And the one thing when we're Zooming all day with kids, you know, having that opportunity to draw. I was just thinking too, you know, when we have our kids come in to get materials from us, you could even give them a learning mascot kit. So you pack up a little bag with all the things that they're going to need for their learning mascot, but you don't tell them what it is. It's almost like a surprise, right? But then they would have the paper, they'd have the scissors, they'd have the glue, maybe a pencil in this kit. And you'd say, okay, everybody get out your learning mascot kit. And then they have that paper to do that one activity that when they pick up their materials, it's like a surprise. They don't know what this thing is that they're getting, but they know it's going to be something fun and special. And I just think it's just that's one of my favorite ways to be vulnerable. I think drawing is a really vulnerable activity for people in general. So drawing with our kids and then having our kids draw with us, we get to have a shared experience where we get to share our feelings about how we're creating together. And then when we're vulnerable, our kids are vulnerable too.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And I know, so for our new folks, Molly, Emily, Kanisha, are you worried about them being vulnerable, nervous? Like, where are you nervous to meet these kids for the first time?
Yeah, I'm worried about it because, I mean, I've seen online a lot of people, the memes about like online learning. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so worried. Like, you ask the kids a question and it's just like, nobody responds. And then they said the teacher will just be sitting there staring and they'll be like,
what do you do, right?
I'm like 55 kids. I'm hoping like one of them will respond. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm thinking about. It's just like, gosh, I really want them to be engaged. I don't want them to be bored. So what I did was, I did like a little get to know me survey. So I asked my kids like 20 questions. Because I mean, they're 10th graders. So, you know, they're not obviously adults, but they want to be.
They're too cool for surveys, right?
Right. So I asked them like 20 simple questions. Like, what's their favorite music artist? You know, what do they want to accomplish before high school's over? Where do they see themselves in 10 years? Like things like that, just to get to know them a little bit. So I know that a lot of my kids like Lil Uzi. I learned that. I was like, okay, young boy NBA, all right. So I kind of know like a little bit before our first meeting. You know, I'll have some things I can kind of throw out there and I can use, you know, to my advantage. So I won't be like a deer in headlights.
So Emily and Molly, you were kind of deer in headlights in a minute last week when you didn't expect me to start with you. I wanted you to feel like that's going to be the new students. How are you going to make sure your kids aren't a deer in headlights?
I think one thing that's going to be really hard is that, so I and Emily, we both did our student teaching in the fall last year. So we both kind of learned like how to start a school year and like how to establish those relationships really quick.
It's a little different this year though, right?
Yes. So with elementary school kids, it's often two extremes. So that you have the kids that are super willing to share, they're really confident, they love to be friends with everybody, and the kids that are really nervous. And when you're in person, it's easy to sit with the kids that are a little bit more shy during math work and just try to get to know them and give them that extra support. So online, it's going to be really difficult to pinpoint those kids that are anxious and find time to connect with them personally. So I think it's going to be really important to do things like get to know you activities and papers where you give them the chance to explain to you what they like, how they learn. And I think it's really important for them, for us to maybe be filling out the same surveys that they're filling out so they can be learning just as much about us as we are about them.
Yeah. Are you ready, Emily, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a little nervous too. I agree with Molly that it's going to be pretty tough to kind of single out which kids need that person to sit next to them. I think one thing that I was just thinking of is finding out like who their buddies are in the classroom. So for my school, they're coming up to third grade, and third grade is the lowest grade in my school. So this is a brand new school for them. And especially with my remote kids, like they might still know some of those second graders that they are coming up with from third grade, but I don't know. So kind of figuring out groupings that can make them comfortable, but it's tough to see that through Zoom of being remote, like who's friends with who. So maybe maybe like some sort of survey to see like who they want to talk to the most. Like maybe they haven't seen their buddies and want to get in a group with them. And kind of like playing around with groupings, like maybe that would be helpful to help them be less nervous. Cause I know when I go into a brand new classroom, like I automatically look to sit with someone that I know. So maybe if they had the opportunity to talk to someone that they already know in breakout rooms or something like that, that could be helpful. And then switching it around. But I'm definitely nervous to see how that's going to go, especially on day one. I'm scared to say, hi, like I'm Miss Van Horn, and everyone's just stare at me and not know what to say. So it's definitely going to be a little intimidating being a first year teacher teaching remotely for these students who are learning remotely for the first time too. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm hopeful that the one-on-ones in Zoom will make the transition a little bit smoother and it won't be as bad.
So one thing, and again, it might sound silly when I say it, but it could be something to think about. So last week, as a few of us here talked about earlier, was professional development, and we had the opportunity to do that. So part of my role is delivering professional development. So one day I had like 3 in a row, 3 hour-and-a-half sessions, one with the elementary, one with the middle, and the high school. And I had my mask on the whole time, and it was hard. And so one of my thoughts was like, again, it sounds silly to say, but to get into your room and just talk for 20 minutes, talk for 30 minutes, like as a new educator to begin with, it's going to be tricky, but then to have a mask on, it was really hard for me, for someone who, and I've done presentations a lot, and for me to talk in front of a room of staff, and this was a 3 hour-and-a-half session. So, maybe the first one was an hour and a half. I was done. Like I had a hard time doing it. So something to think about of maybe practicing, or, you might not want to wear it around your neighborhood all the time, but just have some times where you're talking a lot with the mask on, because it's going to be a different sensation. I saw, Ariel made me think about it when I saw your photo. You had it on in your class, and it's probably new for all of you to, well, probably because once the pandemic hit last year, school shut down, to be talking that long in front of people with a mask on.
Yeah, when I called home to speak to the parents and the students, I did ask how the children felt about wearing a mask. Did they find a comfortable mask? What type of mask do they plan on bringing to school? Just to gauge my comfortableness with them too, because if a parent says, so-and-so hasn't really been wearing a mask, we don't really go out, or we've been only with family in the backyard, then I know if they're looking like they are having a difficult time, they probably are, because they haven't done this in so long. My school is encouraging us to go outside as much as possible, and learning outside and taking mask breaks. So we have plots of grass that are individually plotted out for each teacher to go outside. And that will be a challenge too, because we don't know if I have behavior with the students. I don't know what type of students I'm getting. So will the outside factor bring a different type of partnership between me and the students? Will that make them happy? There's so much unknown that we just don't know and can't necessarily prepare for. But definitely, like you said, Matt, preparing yourself to speaking with them.
It was harder than I thought.
Great.
And I know, Yuritsa, you do a lot of work with professional development, and a lot of, are you prepared to go back with your mask, and what are some of the things you're doing?
besides yelling and screaming, shouting, and
Let's try, besides yelling.
pulling on my hair. So like, I haven't been around any of my coworkers since March, which
Okay.
to me, it's like fairly new because I've been teaching for 11 years. I've been teaching summer school for 11 years, which means I'm like a 12-month teacher. I never take summer vacation. This year, I did some summer school, but it was all remote. This Tuesday, I'll be back in front of teachers. And honestly speaking, I don't know how I will react. I had the largest classroom in the school, which means every meeting that happens in the school happens in my classroom. That has to change because we all can't be in a classroom at the same time. I was just reading, you guys probably noticed that my head was down because my school actually just sent us an email stating that we're gonna have an icebreaker on Tuesday for everyone to send in their baby pictures. And I'm just like, icebreaker, the first thing that came to my mind was, is this going to happen in my room during a pandemic? Like, so for me, everything, I'm like so uneasy. I've never purchased so many masks a day in my life. I have so much hand sanitizer. In my classroom, we already had so many cleaning supplies because our school was really big on cleaning. And as I mentioned during the last episode, we gave students a lot of supplies. So detergent, Lysol wipes, those were things that we already had in-house. Gloves, sanitizer, we had those around the entire classroom. Every group in my class already had cleaning supplies. And so now I'm just like, I don't want to do any activities where kids have to write anything down because I don't want kids to share pens. I'm going to use the Flipgrid voice pods in every class. I only teach one class face-to-face. So that's the good thing about it, that I'm only going to see students one time throughout the day face-to-face, which gives me time to like spray everything. But in regards to, I guess, keeping my distance from teachers, this will be the first time in my history of knowing all of them, because we've all taught together for 7 years, that I would literally have to keep my distance and just say, all right, missed you too, but stay over there. So even with professional development, I don't know how that would be. Usually I'm the one doing professional development every Wednesday.
Right, I knew that. That's what I was asking.
Right.
Yeah.
So now maybe I'll do it in the hallway. Because even when we think about this idea of teaching students outside, we have a large field. But I have 16 to 21-year-olds, which means after 18, you can decide to leave school. And so as a teacher, I don't want to teach anyone outside because my students might walk off the field.
Yeah, that's a real...
Yeah, it's just the reality. So even just professional development might look totally different. I might just, record myself saying, hey, y'all, how you doing? If you need anything, put it in my mailbox and I'll see you next Wednesday because I just don't know what to expect anymore. So I'll let you guys know next week how this week was.
Perfect. I like that. Well, and I think that's the power of coming back each week and kind of just checking in on each other to see, like, next week, Emily and Molly are moving. They're going to be in a new place. They're starting. It's going to be exciting to see that. So we're going to wrap up in about 7 minutes, but I'd love for each of you to leave and share one thing to support as we go into this next week and starting to meet students. What would be one thing that you would either want to try or that you have tried and think that would be supportive of someone? So Kanisha and Ariel, you're on the top of my screen. So I'd love to hear one from each of you, and everyone's going to get a turn before we sign off. I'd love to hear different things.
It looks like somebody asked a question.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Okay. Question answer. Someone do that.
It's
So I'll answer that one
cool.
to kind of wrap it up, because that's more of an administrative side. I want you all to talk about some teacher stuff, but guest, I'm going to get to your question. I promise.
What was the question again?
You threw yourself off. You tried to you pulled the administration of the. So what are you going to try next week to get to know students that we haven't talked about, or what is one thing that you have done that others could try that we haven't talked about?
So there is like a game it's very common game, but like 2 truths and a tale or 2 truths and a lie.
Love that.
I do that. I feel like that's probably one of the best ones for like high school students, just because you know, they're in high school. So we're gonna do that. And I also did see on like Instagram, like how we were talking about the whole, how are you feeling? They were saying that here's like 50 other ways to ask, how are you feeling? Or how are you today? Like, you know, leave 3 positive words, you know, something like that for your week, or, you know, use a gift to describe, like just different ways of like gauging how they're feeling. Cause like Eureka was saying, and I do this, like I sometimes would just be like, I'm good, just because I don't want to get into it, or I feel like I'm doing it for the other person, because, you know, I don't really feel like you really have time right now for what's on my mind. So I think sometimes we just say we're okay just for the other person, or not to have to deal with it. So I think having different ways of really gauging where they are mentally, emotionally. Yeah.
No, that's critical, because we talked a lot about things to do in the social emotional piece. I know when Christine came on, talked a little bit about it, and you just talked about it. I think that's critical too. All right, Ariel, new 4th grade teacher coming down from the middle school. What do you got for us?
The fabulous Melissa Hayes, who is not here tonight, but she's another mentor, shared with me last night that she did an activity with her remote learners, passions and pet peeves. And it was a little bit of a tongue twister. It was really fun for the students, and it was a great way to just quickly break the ice. And I started to think, what can I do for some quick, meaningful icebreakers every day? And then that spiraled into another conversation that I decided I'm going to start my morning meetings with an affirmation every morning. And I want my students to come up with their own positive affirmations. I'll share them. We'll repeat them. We'll write them. They'll be in our notebooks everywhere. Like the learning mascot is just a little reminder that you can do this. But I'm going to let them have free reign over whatever they want to say. It just has to be positive. And whether it is physical, cognitive, academic, social, emotional, something that they can remind themselves to take them through the challenges of the day. And I spoke with a parent today who told me after her child had spoke with me on the phone that she felt like she could sleep tonight. And that just really warmed my heart. And I did realize, but it really hit me what an impact we're going to have on these students. What a memorable year we are going to have, that they haven't been in school in so long. There's so many fears. I just want them to get off the bus and be happy and just smile. And I have so many great ideas from tonight. This was an amazing conversation. I'm like, as I'm speaking, I'm jotting them all down too. So I hope
Well, good thing we're recording it. So
perfect. You know, so funny, Emily, I did the same thing. I'm like, I really, you know, we're recording it. I think we have a tweeter and both of us are taking notes. And this is the power of collaboration and connection. So this is a great conversation.
Awesome. So in the middle section, Emily, Molly, and Eureka, what is one thing that either you're going to implement next week, either from that you've heard, or one thing that you want to share that you have found impactful that in just your couple weeks starting?
Yeah, so I feel like definitely from this conversation tonight, my mind is totally on the how are the kids feeling and how can I figure out if they're nervous or not. And some of my teachers and I in PD, we've been talking about mental health check-ins, and I've seen a couple cute different ways of how to get students to feel this. And I'm not really sure which one I'm going to use yet, but and it's different for in-person and remote, but I've seen different like little flip things on a desk to show like how you're feeling during the day, or like a check-in where you write your name on the back of a sticky note and put it where you're feeling, and they'll do like color codes or different things like that. And I've also seen funny ones where it's like a grid of like 3x3 pictures of the teacher's face actually making different expressions like happy, frustrated, sad, etc. every emotion, and the kids pick which number they're feeling of the teacher's face.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cute. It kind of ties into like seeing the teacher's face so they can kind of attribute that emotion to how they're feeling. And thinking about asking how the parents are feeling too, maybe asking how parents are feeling about sending their kids to school too. So I know my district is all in or all out pretty much. Like for 4th grade and below, there was no option of hybrid or anything. So if you're 4th grade and below, you either go to school all day, every day, or you go completely remote. And so kind of just seeing like where parents are feeling like safety wise and health wise, like what are their anxious levels of sending their kids to school? Are they all for it? Are they like hesitant? Kind of, I think just like mood trackers, that's totally where my mind is right now, of mental health check-in for students and parents.
Oh, I like that. All right, Molly, what do you got for us?
Sorry, I was on mute. So I've heard a lot of good ideas tonight. I feel like Emily said, like my mind is just thinking of all these different things I can do. And I'm kind of thinking of combining a bunch of the ideas. So I
Yeah.
really like the mascot idea and having your own mascot that you can use to talk for you or be vulnerable. And then I was thinking that you could almost kind of combine it with what Emily was talking about with the teacher's face grid. And I saw last year when we first went remote that a lot of teachers sent home like a paper like version of themselves, like a little Bitmoji person printed out to be like, oh, like Miss Mowry's here with you while you're doing your work. And you could even print out 3 for each student, one where you're really happy, one where you're feeling frustrated, and one where you're like kind of in between. And you could have them keep them at their desks at home at their remote place and be like, all right, so which Miss Mowry are you today? Like, how are you feeling after this lesson? And kind of having tangible things for them to hold up on the screen, because in person it's easier to get a thumbs up or raise your hand, but you have to remember that computers can lag, the Wi-Fi might not be great, some students might not want to have their screen video on because they might be self-conscious about their background or have other people screaming. So I think having things to hold up or type in the chat would be really good.
Awesome. So Yuritsa and Carrie, what are some of the things that because you've done this a few times. So what are some things you've tried to help some of our newer folks or first timers to welcome students back or make connections? And then I'm going to answer our guest, and we're going to wrap up.
So I've done talent shares and talent shows, and the difference. So the talent share, I did that with students. It was like the first day introductions, because like I always find that when we ask students what they have difficulty with, it reminds them that they have difficulties, and it makes it almost like impossible for us to like help the kids progress. So I always ask like, what is your talent? And then I usually twist it. So if a kid usually says like, you know, I like making things or I like rapping, then usually I try to create activities that allows that student to use that skill. With the talent show, I actually use that with parents. And like Emily, you know, you mentioned, you know, with parents, you also want to know how they're feeling. That's exactly what I did. So I used Flipgrid and I called it MCV's talent show. And the parents actually posted their talents. So I had parents do TikTok videos with their daughters. I had parents actually play the piano. I've had parents sing Bruno Mars' The Lazy Song. But the idea was I had asked the parents if you could describe to me through music, through dance, or rap, or whatever the case may be, how you're feeling today, then post it. And then I usually just would say, you know, this earns your child 10 points. But the idea was that I took that and I shared it with the students. So now those students who are uncomfortable with showing themselves in the camera or sharing their camera, your mom did this, or your dad did this. Or I would say something along the lines of, I heard you laughing in the background, which means you could have been in the video. But it also just, I guess, makes us more of a community, because I'm asking the parents to learn the same exact skills that I asked the kids to learn.
Yeah, it's about those connections. That's awesome. That's great. Did you make one is the question.
Yeah, so
nice. You gotta share that.
I shared the Flipgrid link of all of the stuff.
Oh, okay, good. I'm gonna say the chat for sure.
You see it there. I definitely was Mary J. Blige. I'm just saying.
Okay, just saying. I like it. Oh, Carrie, tell us something for our new educators out there to connect.
I've done a variety of different, you know, beginning of the year activities. My favorite one, I think, for when I get to do my students is called Me Palooza, and we celebrate everything about them. And so I think anytime we get a chance to when our students are sharing about themselves, for them to share about their positive parts, whatever that topic is, whatever that project title is the route we want to take, especially at first. And then I always make sure, like Yuritsa did, is I make sure I do it too. So if they have their Me Palooza, I have my Me Palooza. So they're always seeing me share first, me be vulnerable first, and then ask them to do it too. And I really try to focus on the positive. Whatever's going to shine a light on whatever's their most sparkly parts is what I want to see, you know, on those first couple of days. And just what I've realized too, being back in the classroom this last week, is I kept hearing it over and over again, but until I lived it, I didn't know. The pace is just going to be hauntingly different than what you remember from student teaching, than what you remember from the year before. And once I gave myself permission to really step back and go slow and establish routine, because routine is safe, right? And just really go slow and get kids into what our routine was going to be. That's when we all started to feel really good about, okay, we can do this. This feels safe, and we're in this together. And I think that was my biggest lesson from last week too. As much as I wanted to get to know the students too, was to give myself permission to really step back and go really slow, and that is okay.
No, that's funny you said that. I actually made a video today when I was running about go slow to go far, but I won't get into that. But I think just to look at two things I want to share before we wrap up. One of the ones kind of goes off of what Emily said a little bit to the person that asked the question, how we sure we're guaranteeing learning and not just policing masks. One of the things that I would share with our educators to have nonverbal cues. So in elementary school, we might have little Dixie cups. Red, green, red, I need a mask break, green, I don't need a mask break, so that you aren't always policing or being the yes person. Because one of the things that we have to do for our learners is create independence. And we have a little bit of a roadblock now that the independence also is behind the mask or over Zoom. So whatever it is at your level, find some nonverbal cues to allow students to show how they're feeling. That Emily talked about that. That was awesome. But also for the mask break or different things, having something on their desk, a flip card, cups that are different color, whatever works for you and whatever you're comfortable with creating. But having that for students is critical, because one, they're already nervous to be talking in front of a mask or behind the mask to begin with. Second, they take the mask off. They could have three friends like, put it on, and like freaking out. So the more we can do to allow for those nonverbal cues is going to be important in whatever level we are. So then we can stay focused on learning and have students self-advocate. Because the other things that happens, especially with probably 7th grade and below, you say, oh, does anyone need a mask break? No matter if they do or not, they're raising their hand, right? Oh, we all do. We all need it. So that's one. And then for our educators, our leaders out there who are going to be mentoring some of our new educators in this field, one thing that I wrote about in the Modern Mentor is be the navigator and not the pilot. That in this time that we're all looking to swoop in and help, which is awesome. But I don't want Emily to do things like I would. I don't want Molly to do things like, Ariel's doing. I want people to be themselves, and I want to help navigate, but you're the pilot of your own journey. And I think you as educators also have to do that for your students as much as we want to help them. And we started off, and Carrie started us off by talking about how there's loss and it's upset. So I just hope for our educators out there, we are not getting lost in the empathy, and that we are still caring, but at the same point, letting students be who they are in this process as well. So tonight was awesome. Thank you all for joining in. For the people who logged in to watch, we are recording it. We're going to send out Kanisha, Ariel, Yuritsa, Molly, Emily, Carrie. I hope you have a fabulous week, and we look forward to seeing you all back here in 1 week. TikTok videos and all. I think, who's not here? Dennis. He is awesome dancer and awesome at TikTok videos. So I think before he comes on next week, I think he should show one for us, or even kick off the broadcast with Dennis and his dancing and his bow ties as well. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and all of you stick around for a minute as we wrap up today. So thank you all for coming on. Check out the link and pass it on to any of the other educators who you think would benefit from spending time with us or hearing some strategies, and send us your ideas for next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
I'm getting Ariel through my boxer on here.
Sorry, I forgot that you probably weren't on mute.
Dennis, now that everyone's gone, can we pull you over?
Are you still recording though, Mike? Matthew?